Tiger Woods was the kind of transcendent star that comes around about as often as Halley's Comet. By almost any measure, he's the most talented golfer who ever lived, and arguably the greatest individual athlete in modern history. For a 15-year span, from August 1994, when he won his first of 3 consecutive U.S. amateur championships as an 18-year-old high school senior, to the early morning hours of November 27, 2009, when he crashed his SUV into a tree and effectively ending the most dominant run in the history of golf. Corporations wooed him, rock stars and Hollywood actors wanted to be him, women wanted to sleep with him. For the better part of 2 decades, he was simply the most famous athlete on earth. Despite his killer instinct on the course, he was an introvert off of it, more comfortable playing video games, watching television, or practicing and training in solitude. As far back as childhood, he spent far more time by himself in his bedroom than playing outside with other children. An only child, he learned early on that his parents were the only ones he should trust and rely on. The Woods family dynamic made Tiger the most mysterious athlete of his time, an enigma obsessed with privacy, who mastered the art of being invisible in plain sight, of saying something while revealing virtually nothing. All of this begs the question, why tackle this project in the first place? Our answer is simple. Very few individuals are known throughout the world by one word: greatness. That is an excerpt from the book I'm going to be reading today, Tiger Woods by Jeff Benedict. It goes through the story of Tiger kind of, and really focuses on the the cost of greatness aspect of what it costs to be him, which is usually not covered and it's not really understood by many people, which I feel like is a very important thing to understand, to really understand the person and the person they are to become the person they are, the person they had to become to be the person that we know them as today. I accidentally misstated that I'm going to be reading the book. I will be reading the book, but only parts of the book, which I found interesting, which will have important lessons that will apply to the cost of greatness, which impacted the life of Tiger Woods. I just want to make that clarification because on this channel, I do not read or summarize the books. I only take important, meaningful, valuable parts that I found interesting and helpful from the book that are helpful, that I could apply to my life, I could learn from, I could understand something deeper, something in that time, in that regard. Just want to make that clear before I continue the video. At 10:50 p.m. on December 30th, 1975, Clotilda Woods gave birth to a baby boy at Long Beach Memorial Hospital. It was clear from the onset that everything about him would be overly complicated, starting with his name, Eldrick Taunt Woods. The name symbolized the nature of his relationship with his parents. The E in Eldrick stood for Earl, his father, the K for Clotilda, his mother. But that is not the name he's called, that's not the name he adopted, or the name he usually calls himself, and this is why. But Earl had no intention of calling his son Eldrick. He immediately nicknamed him Tiger, in tribute to a comrade from Vietnam. His father was he worked in the military for about 20 years, and he worked for the military for about 20 years, and that was his job for a big significant chunk of his life, until he started focusing on Tiger's development more as a golfer, to help him get to tournaments, giving him rides to all the tournaments he'd be going to as he got older. When Tiger was about 6 months old, Earl started bringing him to the garage and strapping him into a chair while using a 5-iron to hit ball after ball after ball. Earl would talk to Tiger. Clotilda would sometimes sit behind the high chair with a spoon in one hand and baby food in the other. The way she tells it, every time Earl hit the ball, Tiger would open his mouth and she would insert the spoon. She would repeat this routine until he finished his meal. It became a nightly ritual. Earl swinging and talking, Tiger watching and listening, Clotilda feeding her baby. And the impacts repetition can have on a child at a very young age, neuroscientists have learned that repetition is very significant in the early developing years of a child, and this may have impacted him later in his life for his brain development and like the quality of his relationship and how he bonded with his father through golfing. That was a very big thing. They really bonded through golfing, which was a way for them to talk and solve problems or just really spend time together. Beginning when Tiger was 2 years old, Earl made sure he spent 2 hours per day hitting golf balls. So he was already getting his 10,000 iterations in, getting those reps in to really get better. And his father called a popular ABC daytime TV show or a talk show to break the awkwardness. They said, let's do a putting contest, and that was really when Tiger wanted to actually prove something, actually get more involved. And he missed the first few putts, but then on the fourth ball, he went to putt again, and his dad put the golf ball right there in front of him, and then he made it, and it showed that he kept trying to please his father. And when a child is trying to do that, like Tiger, it says whatever it takes to meet them, even if that means ignoring his own feelings and needs. So he's trying to please his father while trying to ignore his own. That was a very big theme in Tiger's life and really impacted his upbringing. Rudy Duran, a 31-year-old assistant pro, ran the junior pro program at Hartwell. My son is very talented, Coltida, his mother said. My husband and I would be happy if you could give him some private lessons. His initial reaction was quite similar to that of Jim Hill. The first time, Earl called him skeptical. Jim Hill was a different talk show host that Earl called, but Duran didn't want to be insulting. Well, he said politely, let's check him out. Earl was always looking for a way to give his son an edge. Tiger was in grade school when his father furnished him with a cassette player and motivational self-help tapes. I believe in me. I will own my own destiny. I smile at obstacles. I am first in my resolve. I fulfill my resolutions powerfully. My strength is great. I stick to it easily, naturally. My will moves mountains. I focus and give it my all. My decisions are strong. I do it with all my heart. This mentality really shaped his how he viewed the game and how he approached things early on in his life and throughout all of his life. Continuation of how his mentality really formed was through his mother too. While driving him to tournaments, she shared her philosophy with him. In sport, you have to go for the throat, she said, because if all friendly, they come back and beat you. So you kill them, take their heart. Off the course, Tiger knew the rules. Education before golf, homework before practice, no backtalk, respect your parents, respect your elders. On the course, he had only one rule: play without mercy. This really shaped his mentality during the beginning of his career and through a significant portion of it. And he still is trying, that's the way he approached the game and how he wanted to really win, and like how he ignored all the noise that during during games, during tournaments, he ignored the noise and just focused on his game and really focused on winning. Another formative thing that really shaped his life was his extreme practice habits. He loved to practice, which also may have led to his downfall because of all the injuries he's going to be getting later in his life, which we'll go into. In the summer leading up to his freshman year at Western High, Tiger often averaged more than 10 hours per day on the practice range. And in the book Outliers, it shows that people like Bill Gates, Mozart, Bobby Fischer, and the Beatles, they accumulated a huge amount of hours, before they really got big. That's where the 10,000 hour rule came from. And it demonstrates that it's not people that are smarter, but the people that work harder that really get the better results, because they put a disproportional amount of work to get to where they want to get to. And the code word that Tiger never uttered, though, was enough. If he said that word, his father would stop, but Tiger didn't want to give up, so he would never state that word. Tiger had just turned 16 and he was getting into his first PGA Tour event. The bodyguards, the bodyguards been assigned to him after the tournament. After the tournament, chairman Mark Cooperstock had exercised his right under what's known as a sponsor exemption to invite someone, in this case Tiger, who hadn't qualified for the tournament to participate. As a result, Cooperstock received an anonymous call from a man who didn't like the fact that the tournament had given an exemption to a uh, to a to a they say the N word. Tiger also received a death threat. This demonstrates how people are resistant to change because they may hurt their status, and white supremacy in a way does equal status, which is showed here because the person that didn't want him to participate was against that because it was hurting their own status. And white supremacy in the American South emerged as a tool of economic control rather than simple hatred. After events like Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, where poor whites and enslaved Africans united against wealthy landowners, Southern elites deliberately created a racial hierarchy that redefined poor Europeans as white, granting them social status above enslaved people. So that's kind of like their currency because they don't actually have the money to have higher status, so they use their race uh, to equate that to a higher level of status. This reframing divide the lower class. Reframing divide the lower class prevented unity and convinced many white Southerners to defend slavery, even though it limited their own economic mobility. By the time of the Confederacy, racial identity had become so embedded that slavery persisted not just through force but through belief, showcasing how ideologies are very powerful in how people perceive the world and how they treat others. And it's just like a human trait to want to have higher status. Human nature, just to want to have higher status. Another thing about Tiger and his family was that they didn't really talk about their feelings. One of the unspoken rules in his family was that they didn't reveal or share emotions with one another. His parents simply didn't talk to each other or to him about their feelings, about matters of the heart, or about any subjects that required them to open up. Tiger will later describe this as one of our deals of being a woods. This really impacted him in his life, I believe, when we get further into his story and who he was. During the summer of 1994, he was preoccupied by a far more devastating discovery, though. Now we're at the point where he just got into Stanford. He got a full ride scholarship to Stanford, and his father was more involved in his tournaments and his life more now. Or his father has been involved in his life, but his father is being more involved in the tournaments and giving rides to Tiger because Tiger is needing to go all over the country for tournaments. And the devastating discovery was that Earl had been unfaithful to Cotetta for years. Earl's womanizing was well known to his extended family. His own sister May, who loved Earl dearly, famously quipped, "Oh Lord, if he had been my husband, I'd have shot him." Earl was actually proud of the way he behaved around women and called himself a player, not a cheater, which may have impacted Tiger's life in the future. And this demonstrates a core human characteristic in human nature that humans aren't rational creatures, they are rationalizing creatures. And that really demonstrates how he chose to think about this not um, as a fault of his, but as a good thing, kind of. According to Groman, one of the people that worked on one of the golf courses where Tiger would go to a bunch as a kid and as he got older, a couple of weeks before the U.S. Amateur, Tiger received a letter from the course manager outlining numerous complaints from members and informing him that he would be required to start carrying a receipt for his green fees on him at all times and to provide it upon request. Tiger told Groman he couldn't believe some members had complained. Neither did Groman. He believed the club and course manager simply made up the letter to make Tiger feel unwelcome. And this demonstrates how when people are getting more successful and really experiencing success, people want to push them down, kinda. And this reminds me of a, a quote from Charlie Munger. He's a very well-known investor. He has this quote that the world is not run by greed but by envy, and people are constantly comparing themselves to others, and because of that they become envious of other people and they really want to improve because of that, or they kind of are pushed to improve because of that, not because they're greedy. And this shows that really is demonstrated here how people are pushing Tiger down because it's hurting them, or it's not really hurting them, but they want to be, comes back to the idea of status again. His status is getting higher, there's staying stagnant, kinda, and that feeling of envy causes them to dislike him to some extent. One night during Tiger's freshman year, Merchant, which is a lawyer that was a committee member of like the big golf association that Tiger's father Earl met, they became friends, and Merchant was sleeping at Tiger's house when Tiger was in college. And Merchant finally confronted Earl. "I don't care what you do when I'm not here and the door is closed," Merchant told him. "That's none of my business. But if I don't speak up, my mother will rise up out of her grave and slap the sh word out of me if I allow you to continue to verbally abuse your wife as you do in my presence. So stop it, please." His father would use a lot of profanity when talking to his mother, and these type of things Tiger did dislike, but he loved his father too at the same time very much. So it was just to give an idea of the upbringing Tiger was in, or how his life was shaped. Tiger had just gone on to wanting to become pro, and in that process, he just kind of disappeared from his Stanford team. In keeping with his pattern of abrupt goodbyes, Tiger didn't inform the captain of his team, Eric Currum. "It's the one thing I don't love about Tiger," Currum said. "There was a disappearance. There wasn't a 'hey guys, this is what I'm going to do. I love being here with you. Good luck.' It was just, he was done and moved on." Tiger's lack of sentimentality and personal connection to others can be traced directly to his mother. "I'm a loner, and so is Tiger," Coltita said. Uh, this this way of not really maintaining relationships that well impacted Tiger's relationships throughout his life, because he would kind of just disappear and not really, he would seem to not care about others because he would just kind of not be there or just disappear and leave. And all these can be traced back to how it helped him become great, but at the same time, it had a bunch of negative impacts on him in his life. Tiger had just won the Masters and he'd gotten an invite by Bill Clinton. The big question was what to do about President Clinton's invitation to join him in New York following the following evening. But Tiger took it as a slight, which is a very big theme with his father and his family. They don't take slights at all. That the president had failed to include him in the earlier round of invites that went out to other notable black athletes. So his attitude toward Clinton, according to a source close to Tiger, was simple: screw him. This led to a bunch of controversy with Tiger, in his life at this particular point in his life. He also had some racist comments during the interview. It was more like like jokes, but they were offensive. And in the midst of all the criticism, Tiger's popularity soared. Tiger had only shot had shot past Michael Jordan as the most popular athlete in America. The results reinforced a powerful truth in the eyes of fans: winning the greatness, winning, winning and greatness in athletics overshadows fertilities in human character. This again demonstrates association with winning. People care about winning more than anything, and that is continuously demonstrated by how people just ignore the other aspects of a person and really focus on the winning aspect because people really want to be associated with that. Tiger was doing really good in the golf world. It hadn't even been a year since Tiger had turned pro, and it already seemed like everyone else was playing for second place. But Tiger couldn't stop worrying about his swing. He found more than a dozen things he wanted to change. His list of grievances went on and on. Herman, however, wasn't concerned when he looked at the tapes. Why mess with success? His coach thought. This illustrates his deep commitment to always winning and how you have to struggle to evolve, because I believe that is a core human characteristic of how we can improve in what we do, because you have to struggle in order to evolve, and that allows you to become better as a person in whatever you're trying to become better at. And during this period, he had to lose a lot more than he usually does, or more than he ever does, because he was trying to switch his swing in golf. That really impacts your that impacts how you, when you're trying to switch your swing, it impacts how you play, because you're going through a whole new process of restarting. You're basically starting from, not from zero, but you're restarting to become, to restart and get a better swing. And this showcases a life rule in which I believe the rule of sacrificing the short term for the long term, and which it seems like Tiger believed here. But also when his coach said, "Why mess with success?" that really demonstrates a very common human characteristic in which whenever someone is successful in something, they don't want to switch it, which can lead to failure over time because they're being complacent. And this is demonstrated with the uh, Blockbusters company. Like, the Blockbusters company was a movie company, and they made a significant chunk of their revenue from fees, and those fees would just be late fees. So whenever people would, like, they would buy movies, and then when they buy the movie, they'd get they need to return it, and then if they didn't return it on time, they'd get a late fee, and it was kind of their system of how to make money. And when Netflix came on with a system of less friction when buying stuff, it impacted their sales, because it basically got them out of business, because they didn't want to change, because their system was already working for so good for them. They realized when it was too late that they had to innovate and change, because they became complacent with the success they had, resulting to their demise. So Tiger had been dating a woman named Elin, which would go on to become his wife. She brought up the fact that when she used to work for the Parnavacs as a nanny, they would throw a party every time Jasper won, which was a different golfer. And Tiger responded, "That's not what we do. I'm not Jasper. We're supposed to win." This demonstrates a core concept of what a bunch of successful and successful people have a common trait, which is the curse of competence. It is when winning becomes your baseline, you train yourself. You When winning becomes your baseline, you train yourself to suffer twice. Failure feels like collapse, and success feels like nothing. You raise your standards to reach greatness, then quietly turn those standards into expectations that erase joy from achievement. Over time, effort no longer leads to fulfillment, only relief from disappointment. And the very discipline that made you exceptional becomes a ceiling on your happiness. So you can become very successful, but you can be also very unhappy, which a bunch of people don't see because they think success equates to happiness. But this characteristic, which is shown throughout a bunch of people trying to improve in their craft and really becoming successful at something, they suffer from this good yet not good trait. And Tiger was at the peak of his career. He was experiencing so much success, and when he was experiencing so much success, it kind of got to his head maybe a little bit. And by every viable measure, Tiger Woods was alone at the pinnacle of professional sports, the most talented golfer to ever play the game, the greatest athlete of his generation, and the richest athlete of all time. At 30, he was untethered from his family by a narcissism that fed his self-destructive addictions to bodybuilding, painkillers, sleeping pills, and sex. And he goes through a whole period in his life where he's going through a sex scandal where he's cheated on his wife. He did a bunch of different things, and I'm not really going to go into that aspect of his life, but his formative years of him not really speaking to people may have uh, impacted him to do this. And he was extremely lonely at this time of his life, even though he was having so much success, which people don't usually see because they think success equates to happiness, and success equates to, and like he had all the fame he wanted, he could go talk to anyone, but at this time in his life he was super lonely. So it shows that fame and success with money and all these other things don't equate to happiness, and that there are real costs associated with this thing, with success. And Tiger was really going through a reconstruction of himself during this period in his life. He was going through therapy and all those type of things. And when he came back to golf, a reporter asked, "What's been the most difficult thing for you to deal with?" Having to look at myself in a light that I never wanted to look at myself in, Tiger said. This was Tiger 2.0, uncharacteristically forthcoming, contrite, remorseful, and the greatest athlete in the world had never looked so vulnerable and so human. This was a new Tiger that really was becoming a new person to some extent. When Woods was at the pinnacle of his sport, he came off more like a machine than a man. Now at 42, he had formed friendships with everyone from Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, and Jordan Spieth to Phil Mickelson, and was gracious in defeat. He joked with reporters, he went out of his way to engage with fans. The fact that his personal problems played out in public, an infidelity scandal, sex addiction treatment, divorce, the misuse of prescription painkillers, and DUI arrest ultimately endeared him to the public in ways that his mastery of golf never could. The fact that he endured so much and pulled himself out of such a deep hole created a groundswell of support from people throughout the world who now root for Tiger, the man, the human being, much more than Tiger Woods, the golfer. And I wanted to end this video with a very important lesson from Tiger, which he came to understand after all these difficulties in his life he was going through, that we should all try to implement in our lives. I learned one thing for sure, he said, Tiger. When I play golf again, I'm going to play for myself. I'm not going to play for my dad or my mom or Mike Stanberg or Steve Williams or Nike or my foundation or you or the fans. Only for myself. This was Tiger's story and the cost he had to pay to become the person he became. And if you guys like that, you guys can go buy the book. It was a very interesting book that really showcased the cost of what it meant to be the person Tiger had become. And if you like the video, subscribe or to the Spotify podcast or the YouTube channel, however you guys can, or whatever you guys are listening on or watching on. And thank you for watching.